This place is the only one that's so distorted. That's because it's from long before of June 1983. Therefore, the existence of this place has no effect whatsoever in the game we are playing on this board. But is this really a useless piece? The identity of Rule Y has been completely exposed by now. While the backing of a mighty organization, it is powerful enough to swallow up the small solidarity of individuals. I almost gave up on this game because of its irrational power. That's why I'm thinking that maybe there's a piece hidden somewhere that's strong enough to fight against such a formidable foe. Mamoru Akasaka works at the police headquarters in Tokyo and might have the power to stand up to such a vast conspiracy. Can his power withstand even Rule Y? Just like Keiichi Maebara defeated Rule Z, will he be able to defeat Rule Y so easily? We need everyone's strength. So Akasaka's strength is needed as well. Okay, so this one was about the focus of the piece of Akasaka. Cool. Okay, then. Next up is a fragment of Onikakushi. Whoops, did not mean to do that. There we go. In order for Keiichi Maebara to become a game piece that can lead everyone, there's something he has to learn about first. The piece that's very painful, pitiful, and sad. He has to learn about his friends, and he has to learn to not doubt them. He doesn't know the importance of trusting his friends. He doesn't know just yet. A slight mistrust grows into paranoia, and Keiichi Maebara is trapped within Rule X. At the end of Rule X, Keiichi leaves a sad note and dies. While it may be very bitter and very painful, it also puts him through the process of learning something very important. Hey, Hanyū. You didn't have to apologize. In the few days he left Hinamizawa to attend his relative's funeral, tragically, he experienced an outbreak. But I think this was necessary, as his first step towards learning something important. The very first step towards smoking out to Rule X and eventually defeating it. When this piece was all I had, I didn't even think of that, though. Next up, Horoboshi. Let's get her done. One by one, we conquer them all. This game piece has a very important meaning for us, because it showed us for the first time that it was possible to poke a hole in the fate of June of 1983. To start from the conclusion, everything gets taken in by Rule Y at the end, and all our effort is wasted. But we are challenging the great law that governs this game board, Rule X, head on. We are using everything we've learned so far from other fragments, which prove we can defeat it. We grow by learning. In a game with no hope of winning, we can discover a slight chance of victory. This piece taught us that. With this game piece, Rule X was almost completely defeated. Keiichi Maebara and our other friends won't be led astray by something as pathetic as the Hinamizawa syndrome and dance in tragedy any longer. It has also taught us that the rules aren't indestructible and are possible to overcome. In other words, it has given us, the ones who are on the outside of the game board, hope. It's an important fragment that serves as our turning point and the trigger for everything else. Next up, Watanagashi. Let's do it! Damn! We breezing on through this. Let's go and get her done. This game piece reminds us that no matter what happens on this game board, everything is due to the curse or the Sonozaki family pulling someone's strings. No, to put it in my words, this is the piece that makes everyone aware of the existence of Rule Z. It's hard to notice with just this piece, but this is a complicated fragment where Shion Sonozaki, while trapped in Rule X and mistaking it for Rule Y, is hurled about, comes to notice the existence of Rule Z. But this is also the piece that teaches us the rules of the game board. Double entendre. By the way, the piece called Shion Sonozaki is a piece coming from the outside, from the game's point of view. She dislikes Satoko Hojo at first, but through this and another piece, she learns something important, challenges Rule X, and then grows to be a powerful piece to fight Rule Z. The most ridiculous part of this fragment is that it's hidden so cunningly, and doesn't seem that way at all with just a passing glance. Learn from your mistakes. Please become a powerful piece and lend me your strength to defeat my enemies. Oh yeah. Next up, Akashi. This is the piece of Shion Sonozaki, who goes mad after being taken in by Rule X. With no room for sympathy, this is such a painful piece that one can only have pity. It distinctly identifies the keyhole of the padlock called Rule Z. Keiichi Maebara becomes a key himself to pry open this padlock. And, as Mion Sonozaki wished for, he becomes a wind that clears out the stagnant air filling the village. This piece also teaches us an important lesson. Shion Sonozaki learns through this piece and then becomes a strong ally for Satoko Hojo. In that way, maybe Satoko Hojo is a piece that represents the padlock for Rule Z. Unless she is saved, Rule Z can't be defeated. And then she is saved. And when she is saved, that means Rule Z is defeated. This piece indicates only that. That's the only thing Shion Sonozaki learned by gambling her life. But now, I think that it's very important. Every time I see Satoko and Shion argue about pumpkins, I think about that. Weird, but okay. Next up, a fragment of Tatarigoroshi. This piece shows us the existence of the unreasonable Rule Z surrounding Satoko, and reveals the most powerful adversary rule on the game board, Rule Y. Can the rules X, Y, and Z be seen now? The enemy we need to fight, the things we need to learn, all are gathered and revealed here in this one fragment. At this point, it's impossible to reach Rule Y. Fighting against Rule Z's effect on Satoko is the best that can be done. But in this piece, we make a mistake in our approach for fighting it. The outcome we gained through erroneous means is erroneous itself. Keiichi Maebara learned that through his own experiences. A tragedy doesn't possess the power to overcome tragedy itself. Violence doesn't possess the power to overcome violence. If they can grasp that, all the pieces on this game board will learn the true way to fight. But Takano is too powerful. The shocking end of this piece doesn't allow us to learn in that easily. Next up, Minagoroshi. The game piece that uncovers the invisible Rule Y that has been pulling the strings from the beginning. Because the impression of that is so strong, it's easy to forget about something very important. We can't forget that this piece also shows the path towards destroying Rule Z. While Rika Furude lamented Rule Z as impossible to defeat, it was hardly a match for Keiichi Maebara and the others once they learned everything they needed to. They knew the correct way to fight, and fought according to the rules of the game board. As a result, we win, and that fact is more valuable than anything for us. Keiichi Maebara taught me that lesson. There is no need to subject ourselves to any fate. The will to believe can defeat anything. The fate that I was always subjected to was created by Mio Takano's own conviction. So what he says is correct. To defeat her conviction, we need a stronger conviction of our own. A strong will can be pierced only by another stronger will. We defeated rules X and Z, and then challenged the final rule, Y. But we needed more pieces. Each piece fought at its best, but the strength of our enemies' pieces, led by Mio Takano, were just too powerful. She didn't even give us mercy. She squashed us completely, and made us restart the game all over again. Although we lost, we didn't give up the resolve in our hearts. Because we've finally found the true culprit, and also found a clue for how to fight against her. We can't win with the pieces we have now. We don't have a powerful enough conviction or a strong enough will. But Hanyū and I will keep trying. We will roll our die repeatedly, looking for the greatest result, collect pieces, and try again. With a will stronger than Takano. Didn't you think of giving up several times before you got to this point? But you made it because you believed in me and followed me here. We are almost there. We can do it. Let's create the last piece. It will be the ultimate piece, and we won't need anything else. The very last piece of all. Come on. Let's go collect the pieces. Let's collect miracles. please give your hopes, desires, and dreams to me. And finally, a fragment of Matsuribayashi. After collecting miracles from all 7 fragments, I finally got a hold of this one. This fragment holds our final fate. But before we can take a peek, please wait for just a little bit. The fate that's inside will be decided the moment we take a peek. Have I told you about the story of the cat in the box? This again, eh? Show Strider's box! Is the cat in the box alive or dead? If you open the box, you'll know, but you won't know until you open it. It could be alive, and it could be dead. In other words, before you open the box, the living cat and the dead cat simultaneously coexist. And the moment you open the box and find out the truth, the incorrect answer disappears. The inside of this fragment is the same principle. The future we desire and the future Takano desires simultaneously coexist. They are opposing and denying each other. Once we take a peek, one of those futures will disappear. If we have enough pieces, we can take a look inside this fragment. But we have only had the same pieces lined up the same way on the game board. And the game under the same condition was Takano's complete victory. We have already tried that in the Minagoroshi fragment. We need more pieces. We need the help of a piece that's powerful enough to defeat Y. Rule Y. Until I get a hold of that one piece, it's too scary to take a peek inside this one fragment. But how do I get such a piece? It's a piece I've never gotten a hold of before. To obtain it, I need to look just one more time. I need one more miracle to obtain that piece. Alright, here we go. Leftover fragments. Do you need the final miracle? What is this? I never noticed this tiny fragment before. Sometimes a fragment gets cracked and it breaks. Just like how the fate we believe in cracks sometimes. A damaged fate is no longer the same fate it was. Then which fate does this piece belong to? I picked up the tiny fragment and tried to match it with the fragments I have in my hand. And the last fragment I picked up was the Himatsubushi fragment. This fragment was distorted from the beginning. And look. See? This tiny piece fits perfectly. With this tiny fragment, how will the world change? What kind of miracle will occur? The whole world warped. Since I put the broken piece back where it belonged, the distortion centered on the crack. But that doesn't mean I can't take a peek inside. It's already past 1985. It's a time long after Rika Furude and her friends' stories tragically ended in June 1983. With some mild interference, an order crackled through their headsets.
全班へ室長からありがたいお言葉があるぞ。傾注しろ。
ご苦労さん。所轄署は15分くれることになってる。秒で制圧しろ。一人たりとも逃がすな。ターゲットの一人は外交官だ。警察だと悟られるな。有無を言わせず身柄を確保しろ。ただし間違っても危害を加えるな。外交問題に発展するぞ。
外交官特権で地元暴力団と癒着している芸道どもだ。
クソどもが。
Normally, this would be a simple case. What with the perpetrators being gangsters. But when the police found out that a foreign diplomat was involved, things got much more complicated all of a sudden. Diplomats have diplomatic immunity, so the police can't arrest them. But they knew he was an important figure in the whole scheme, and there was no doubt that he was the middleman between the foreign criminal organization and the Japanese gangsters. They couldn't let him escape. It will be easy to deport him, but that wouldn't solve anything. The police had asked the embassy for assistance, but they denied the request, and the case was put on a standstill at that point. That's when they found out that the organization was going to be selling the Self-Defense Force's classified radar and missile technology secrets. The Public Safety Division then had to move on the premise to protect this classified government information. And today was the day that operation was set to go.
正面は階段前に2人、地下入り口に2人、裏口に4人。全員体重の可能性大。
普段より2人多いな。
あの人にとっちゃ2秒余計にかかるだけさ。容赦ねえからな、あの人。
聞こえるか、赤坂。お前が切り込み隊長だ。用心してかかれ。よし、開始しろ。
赤坂了解。作戦を開始する。
A man suddenly appeared around the corner downtown. It was Akasaka. He displayed none of the naivety that he had when he first met Rika. When he got to the entrance of the underground club, a bouncer with a heavy foreign accent stopped him.
Koko, Keiichi. Oni-san, Keiichi aru.
Okay, caveman, get the fuck out of my face. Akasaka pulled a card out after being asked. It was a card that was very difficult to forge, so they could only get one. As the man on point, he was the one to receive it. The bouncer let Akasaka in after confirming he had a membership card.
赤塚さん、地上の護衛突破。地下階段を降りてます。
頼むぞ、赤坂。
At the bottom of the staircase, there was an overly decorated door, like the ones you'd see at a high-class club. The venomous glow of the cocktail lights lit it up, silently warning everyone it was an entrance to a den of evil.
いらっしゃいませ。会員証を拝見いたします。
The guard at the entrance took the membership card and put it through the card reader on the wall. An error sound. Slight perspiration could be seen on Akasaka's forehead. The guard swiped the card a couple more times. Beep. Beep.
赤塚さん、手間取ってます。
まさかカードの認証が変えられたか。 赤坂にトラブルが発生したら作戦変更するぞ。赤坂の安全を速攻で確保しろ。
The expression on the guard with him steadily grew dour. His right hand reached inside of his jacket, probably fingering his gun. Ding! The buzzer suddenly rang with a delightful tone, and the card reader flashed a green light. Immediately after that, the lock on the door opened up.
お待たせしました。どうぞお通りください。
The guard pulled his hand out of his jacket and opened up the heavy door. Loud music and flashing colorful lights spilled out from the inside. From within that, a well-dressed guard appeared to welcome Akasaka. At this moment, his first mission was accomplished. Having acted as the go signal for the remaining units, Akasaka was also in the dangerous position of being in enemy territory all by himself. The door was the biggest obstacle for their ambush. The door locked automatically, so whenever it was closed, it was also sealed that way. It was a solid door, and nearly impossible to open from the outside. Somebody had to not only open that door, but keep it open for several seconds in order for the raid to begin. Akasaka was the only one who could do that.
赤坂、入り口確保。
作戦開始。
The complex on the other side of the club was getting a new tenant, and there were 2 trucks parked in front of the building. But of course, that was just a disguise. The door to one of the trucks opened and several dozen plainclothes investigators jumped out. The same thing was happening at the back door too. The ground level guards noticed this and began to draw their guns, but were taken down immediately by nearby investigators who had been pretending to be innocent bystanders. Several dozen investigators quietly went down the underground stairs. These narrow underground stairs were another obstacle to their operation. Everything would end up on the security camera. Their raid would become known within a few seconds. For that matter, a push on the security button would make it impossible for the lock to be opened from the outside. That's why they had to secure the door before the ambush. The guards on both sides of Akasaka noticed the loud footsteps coming down the stairs. The well-dressed guard also realized that something was wrong. The 3 guards shifted their attention from Akasaka to the stairs behind him. And as he sensed that attention shift, Akasaka took a quick, deep breath and then stopped breathing entirely. The 2 guards standing beside him suddenly rose into the air in strange positions. Akasaka had determined his position relative to the 2 guards next to him, so he didn't need to check with his eyes. But even so, his fists have been driven into their faces with such precise accuracy. His moves were well-trained ones, and showed no mercy against evil. They were as destructive as armor-piercing ammunition. And furthermore, Akasaka had retracted his arms at the same speed as he struck. Everything looked so strange in the flashing lights. The man who witnessed all this probably couldn't figure out what had just happened. The 2 guards were up in the air in strange positions, and the man who had been standing in front of him was now crouching low. Then that frozen moment shattered. The well-dressed guard was smashed into the ceiling, and shortly afterward came crashing down onto the floor. Later on, while slurping liquid food, he would desperately try to remember whether it was a fist or a leg that broke his jaw. He would probably never quit recalling it. Rather luckily, the way his body fell blocked the door, so Akasaka didn't have to hold it open any longer.
赤坂突入する。
Oh my god, so manly.
おい待て、皇族と合流しろ。赤坂。
The room was filled with loud music, but everyone had already noticed the brouhaha. What? At the entrance.
全員床に伏せろ。
As soon as Akasaka bellowed his warning, screams filled the club. Most people immediately hit the floor as if trying to proclaim their innocence, but all the guards reacted quickly to Akasaka. In the midst of all this, there were a few people who were trying to make their escape through the back alongside several guards. Akasaka restarted his breathing once, and then stopped it again, and then ran after them like a wolf. He jumped up onto the table, smashing expensive bottles of alcohol and scattering glasses with ice cubes made from the icebergs of the Arctic. A foreign bodyguard, whose previous profession must have been a professional boxer, thoughtlessly stood in front of Akasaka. With a heavy accent, he tried to taunt his opponent, but Akasaka couldn't have cared less about that. The only display that man was able to put on for him was that he was able to block Akasaka's attack. But it wasn't even an effective guard. The power of Akasaka's punches were so incredible that they simply broke the man's bones in an attempt to block them. Right, wink. The man's arm warped in a strange way, and the moment after the agony showed on his face, Akasaka's left arm grounded it into it. What? Yo, how many times do I have to say this motherfucker's name? We get it, it's Akasaka fucking Christ God fucking fuck! Hi. You know what? Nickname, Aka. There we go. Aka, you see, is right-handed. That man should consider himself grateful that he was able to get away with a more orbital fracture. What the fuck ever. Thinking that this was his chance, another man attempted to tackle Aka-san from behind. I don't know where with came from, but whatever. He assumed that no matter how strong a man was, he'd go down quickly when attacked from behind. He also assumed that Aka was concentrating in front of him. He wouldn't be expecting an attack from behind to begin with. But that would only be true if Aka was just concentrating on his friend. Indeed, the attacker was very wrong, for Aka was no longer even thinking about the man before him. Aka knew exactly when and what was about to happen. The experience he has built up to this day taught him that. His body, more than his mind, remembered the timing for when menaces of society like these would make their move from behind him. Aka's attack continued fluidly from the left arm punch that he struck against the ex-boxer. His left arm retracted, and at the same time, he arced his left leg around beautifully as it crashed into the man approaching him from behind. A dull sound signified that his nose had been broken, but Aka already knew that. Akasaka continued his motion and directed a decisive right blow to the side of his assailant's head. The man slammed into the wall and bounced off of it, rolling on the floor, laughing my ass off. Aka took another breath. Under the glare of the dazzling club lights, the guards realized they were up against a demon. Yes, they realized that there was no way to take him down. The guards were being paid to deal with humans. Fighting demons just wasn't in their job description. At that moment, backup finally arrived. Maybe finally isn't a suitable word. Everything that happened did so over a matter of seconds. The time it took for Aka to take down those 5 guards was a span of merely 2 breaths.
Oh my god, he's so dreamy.
Ah, shit. Thanks to Akasaka's furious actions, the flow of events was already set. Akasaka's intimidating first strike shattered the gang's leaders' will to run. They were all down on the floor, but one of them began smiling like a little cunt.
Oh my god! It's the diplomat man.
What? Ah, shut up your arse. Akasaka grabbed him by the collar and threw him against a concrete wall. Hell yeah. Blow up your ass.
そりゃよかったな。給料いくらだ？
これ外交問題になります。大使館へ連絡させてくだ。
With a dragon-like roar, Akasaka's right fist pounded the wall right next to the diplomat's head.
Oh my god! All the screen shaking, please stop.
Immediately after that, his left fist pounded the wall on the other side of that head, and soon enough Akasaka had pounded the wall 7 times, each just a sliver away from the diplomat's head. His fists were easily powerful enough to crush the man's head. Jesus Christ. Okay. A little bit overboard. No. Oh, fucking Christ, man. Shatter his jaw, nose, and cheekbones? Sure. Maybe all of his teeth? Maybe. But crushing his skull? Give me a fucking break. God damn, if I was a woman, imagining all that, splooge. Shut up. The diplomat crumbled to the floor, pissing his pants like a little schoolgirl. Ha! He has no balls, he has no cojones.
Akasaka, target確保.
Further investigations discovered a secret getaway route that even public safety didn't know about. Dozens of Soviet military-grade machine guns were found, and if Akasaka hadn't stopped them there in the club, they would have escaped. Or even worse, the operation might have ended with a brutal death toll on both sides. All thanks to how well Akasaka executed his duty. The operation was completed without a single shot fired.
Splendid.
急げ! 地元警察が来るぞ! 全員を荷台に押し込め!
Since the foreign diplomat was involved, they had to make sure it didn't look as though the whole operation was carried out by the police. Instead, it was made to look like a simple gang war.
Oh my god, not the gangs. My god.
They would dump the useless gang members and hand over the target to the police. Of course, before handing him over, they'd make sure he spilled everything he knew. That diplomatic pig would be used as a negotiation device by another part of public safety. They found plenty of evidence that said pig was tied to an underground criminal organization. Not wanting a persona non grata on their hands, the embassy would likely cut all ties with him. The rest would be the business of other departments. Public safety's job was to take care of the things regular police couldn't deal with.
Akasaka は無事か? 応答しろ, Akasaka!
こちら赤坂、撤収中。
また無茶をしやがって。後で出張にこってり絞られろ。
やっぱり鬼だな、赤坂さんはよ。 秒殺で5人撃墜だぜ。
ありゃあ絶対空手の域を超えてるな。
He's a real monster.
赤坂さんの鉄拳はすでに狂気だね。
Oh yeah.
しかし連中、銃を抜かなかったのはラッキーだったよな。
He's gonna star the next Lethal Weapon film.
What?
赤坂さん、躊躇ねえからな。蜂の巣にしてたかもしれないぜ。
聞こえてるぞ。人を殺し屋みたいに言うな。
But you are, my boy.
俺は悪党に容赦しないだけだ。
Oh shit. The pigs he had just caught were no average criminals. They had committed so many unforgivable sins. Hey, cool it with that word there, boy. The strength behind Akasaka's fists were proportional to those sins. The heavier their sins, the more powerful his blows would be. Uh-huh. Wink.
豚どもを荷台に詰め込め。
Oh shit.
赤坂、急がせろ。所轄署に通報が入ってるぞ。
赤坂了解。聞こえたな。撤収を急げ。
了解。主任どうぞ。要治療が5名。手配をお願いします。
There wasn't any trace left of Akasaka's old naivety. He had grown to be the vigilant ace of his department. That's it. Okay, cool.
Oh my god, why?
Akasaka was training inside a dark dojo. Dark dojo? Filled with the smell of sweat and mold. That's disgusting. Sweat and mold? God damn. Wait, did I say I think I said sweet. What the Sweat and mold. The dojo was located in the middle of downtown in a small building. It wasn't that big, and they weren't that well equipped either. That sucks. It certainly didn't look like the dojo where a person as skilled as Akasaka would train in. There were only 3 or 4 students there, including Akasaka. But this was the dojo he picked. To Akasaka, karate was certainly a weapon for crushing his opponents, or enemies. Choo-choo train. But now he was seeking something further from it. To achieve his goal, a dojo with many young students having actual physical lessons wouldn't work. He had gone to so many different dojos, and this was the one he finally settled on. Every time Akasaka punched a sandbag, the heavy thud of his punch and the clang of the sandbag's chain would echo. He wasn't just punching blindly. He thought first, developed those thoughts, and then punch! It was more of a deep and low vibration than a proper sound. Drops of sweat scattered, and the dust welled up in the air. It was a perfect blow, embodying the concept of one strike, one kill. But he wasn't satisfied. He closed his eyes, controlled his breathing as if trying to hear the cry of cicadas, and then he punched again. From a beginner's perspective, it looked like he was taking breaks between each. The other students training on their own would glance over and sense a fearsome respect at his focused blows.
赤坂さんって警察に勤めてるって噂だぜ。
マジかよ。あんな人が警官やってるなら、俺は悪いことする気なんか起きねえぜ。しかし、赤坂さんも集中力がすげえよな。あの人疲れるってことを知らねえぜ。
On his days off, Akasaka came to the dojo in the early morning, and he silently trained all day. His training was no longer physical, but mental. The other students were already aware that his continuous concentration was the secret of his strength. However, that was easier said than done. As long as a person lives, they are bound by countless ties and idle thoughts. For a person to submit all his will into such singular focus is more like trying to attain enlightenment than something in the realm of martial arts. Man has tried many times, many different methods to achieve such enlightenment. And what we've learned is that there is one way to reach it, and the path one takes can reach it if mastered. Karate is what Akasaka chose.
噂に聞いたんだけどよ。あの人、奥さん死んじゃってるらしいんだよ。それを忘れるために空手を始めたって噂だぜ。あれ？俺が聞いた話は違うぜ。任務中に女の子を救えなかったとかなんとかで、それで自分の無力さを痛感したとかなんとか。
おい、聞こえてるぞ。人の噂話なんかしてないで稽古をしろ。
Oh my god.
There was a small beeping noise. Somebody's watch was letting them know it was noon.
あ、赤坂さん。俺たち弁当買ってきますけど、赤坂さんのも買ってきましょうか。
助かる。何でもいいぞ。頼む。
Akasaka was more pleased to be alone in the dojo than to have anyone bring him lunch. When they left, silence filled the building.
くそ。人の話なんかしやがるから。集中が途切れちまったじゃないか。
Yeah, that will grab a certain someone's attention when they're being talked about. But if that happened because of all that bit of small talk, that meant he had much more training to do. He had to train much harder if he wanted to achieve enlightenment. He focused again and started to punch the sandbag, but the sound was a lot lighter than before, and obviously the strength in his fist was no longer there. Realizing that he needed to take a break, Akasaka pulled out a towel from his bag and sat down. Okay, alright. The sound of cicadas soaked into his body. The windows were open, but there was no breeze coming in. Still, he could feel the cool air, if just a little. Just as they said, the reason Akasaka started karate was because of Yuki's death. Of course, losing against the suspect in that kidnapping incident was one reason too, but more than that, the pain from Yuki's death was what made him start. Yuki fell down the stairs at the hospital and died while he was on a business trip in Shishibone. He couldn't get rid of that depression, so he started learning karate. But in June 1983, when the Great Hinamizawa disaster occurred, he realized something very important. A girl had predicted Yuki's death, and in return she wanted him to help her. Yuki's death was an accident. He could have told himself that there was nothing he could have done. But as for the girl, Rika Furude's death was different. She knew about her own death 5 years prior. When the disaster occurred, he remembered Oishi and called him to make sure he was okay, then found out about everything. When he was caught up, he fell into despair. Rika Furude was the turning point in his life. If he had believed what she predicted and did something about it, maybe Yuki wouldn't have had to fall down the stairs. He took the oath to serve the public as a police officer, yet he didn't even notice the plea for help from a little girl. He shoved aside the conspiracy surrounding her until it was too late. He had 5 years to do something about it, but he didn't do anything, and she died. Visiting Hinamizawa for the kidnapping case of the minister's grandson was definitely the turning point in his life. If he had only listened to what that little girl said, Yuki would have never died, and he could have been there to help Rika Furude. Those two things continued to haunt him. The investigation into the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa that he heard about from Oishi San was put on indefinite hiatus because of the disaster, but it was apparent to both of them that there was some conspiracy behind it all. To challenge such things, he needed all the strength and experience that he could muster. He was devoting himself to gain such strength, but it was too late. Everything had already ended. While he was stuck in this dilemma, the dojo instructor admonished him. There's nothing one can do about what's already done. So in that case, the only thing he can do is train diligently, so that if the same thing is to happen again, he will be able to save a person in need. It's all too late. Everything is already over. Yuki died in an accident. Hinamizawa was destroyed in the gas disaster. And Rika-chan was murdered as her intestines were ripped out while she was alive. Shit! I was too obsessed with Yuki's death and couldn't hear the girl's pleas for help. No. If I had listened to her, I could have prevented Yuki's accident too. Damn it. Damn it! Shit! That was a little hey here. I'm gonna keep it though, that was funny. Okay. As Akasaka clutched his hair and looked up, he noticed a small shrine overhead that protected the dojo. Akasaka respected both Shinto and Buddhism, but he had never thought of praying to gods in time of despair.
Did somebody say despair?
But for the first time, he felt like praying for help. If it was something he was capable of doing himself, he would never even consider praying. But as it was something he couldn't resolve on his own, he prayed. It was a very selfish wish. If his wish were to come true, everyone in the whole world would wish for the same thing.
もう一度もう一度あの時に戻らせてくれ。そうしたら今度こそ俺は二人を救う。
At that moment, Akasaka's body suddenly felt very light. No, it was more like he was losing balance, as if he was fainting. Perhaps it was because he shouted so loudly after training and his brain was lacking in oxygen. But he couldn't take his eyes off of the shrine.
ありがとう、赤坂。あなたの思いが私たちにはとても必要だった。
Was this a hallucination? Akasaka felt like a stranger was talking to him.
私たちが奇跡を願い、あなたも奇跡を願わなければ奇跡は起こらない。だって奇跡は全員が願わなかったら起こらない。双方が手を伸ばし合わなかったら届かない。
He didn't know what she was trying to say, but somehow he felt like he couldn't miss a single word of it. He felt like it was something very, very important.
赤坂、もしあなたも望んでくれるなら、私たちに奇跡を。それは欠けたかけらを結び合わせ、より大きな大きなかけらを生み出すきっかけになる。あなたのたった一つの決意が全員の思いや運命に大きな影響を及ぼすこともあるのだから。
あの時にもう一度時間を巻き戻してくれるというのか。
うん、そんなこと私にできるのは気づかせることだけ。一つのかけらだけでは学べないことを他のかけらで学んだことを気づかせてあげるだけ。だからこの欠けたかけらをあるべきところへ戻すだけ。 それでもきっと大きな奇跡、もっともその奇跡をあなたはきっと気づかないだろうけれど。
Thank you, Akasaka. Thank you for remembering me. I don't even know how much time I've spent asking you for help. But finally it reached you. So I'll say it one more time. Please help me. No. Please help us. There we go. Whew. Whew. Alright.
Oh boy.
And thus we are here. The last part